Hello, gang. Welcome to another episode of Why Is He Doing That? Where we talk about all the shit Trump's up to and why we think he's doing it and what we can do to stop it. No, it's not really called that. It's called Defiance Daily. I'm the co founder of Defiance, Xander Schultz. I'm happy to be here with you today. We have a really great episode. I'm joined by Tara McGowan, personal hero of mine, Tara McGowan, also that happens to be the founder of Courier Newsroom. And we have a guest today, Lisa. Is the co-founder of Court Accountability and True North Research, a leading expert on the right-wing legal movement and the author of Without Precedent. She also helped expose Justice Clarence billionaire-funded gifts. So it's going to be an awesome episode, but we always like to start with a little optimism here. So we're going to go through rapid fire defiance. Buckle up your proverbial seatbelt. All right. Let's get into it. Former Olympian David Hearn is asking a judge to permanently dismiss the reflecting pool case after the Justice Department admitted that damage was caused by a botched installation, not vandalism. His attorneys argue the prosecution was politically motivated. You don't say, and say the government rushed to indict him without sufficient evidence. New Mexico Attorney General Raul Torres has sued Todd Blanche and the Justice Department, accusing them of blocking the state's investigation into sex crimes at Jeffrey Epstein's ranch. So nice to see state leadership taking action over this incredible nightmarish behavior by the Justice Department. Torres says his office made 10 requests for key records and was ignored or denied, even though New Mexico may still be able to prosecute Epstein associates and deliver justice for survivors. Go New Mexico. In Tuesday's primary, Missouri voters overwhelmingly rejected a Republican-backed amendment that would have allowed lawmakers to eliminate the state income tax and replace the lost revenue with broader sales tax. The measures failed with 83% voting no after nonpartisan analysts warned that 80% of Missourians would have paid more, averaging over $500 in additional taxes each year for folks who already can't afford it because of many, many things that we've covered over and over again on this program: rising prices due to tariffs, a terrible economy thanks to Trump and his war in Iran. So thank you, people of Missouri, for ensuring that the poorest among us have more money in their pocket to live. All right, let's bring on Tara McGowan, personal hero of mine, founder of Courier Newsroom. Tara, what's going on? Have you figured out local journalism? Have you solved it?
Have
Are we on the right path?
First of all, thanks for having me, Xander. This is so fun to co-host and not be a guest with you. Despite I'm having audio troubles and my dog just picked a squeaky toy up. So apologies, everybody, if you hear that at some point in here. Maybe he'll show his face. Yes, I think local journalism was figured out before. I think it's just a matter of actually making sure that it is funded and that it is able to do the accountability work that it's always been really essential in this country and in our democracy. So I think we're doing a really good job of that at Courier, and there's a lot of other independent outlets that are doing the same. And we just need more independent media, as you know, and you guys advocate for so much with this community. So.
Yeah, we are not drowning in accountability for those in power. We have a bit of a gap to close, as we'll talk about here on the show. All right, Tara. So the first story I want to talk to you about is the roller coaster of defamation lawsuits between Trump and the BBC. Speaking of news, back in December, Trump sued the BBC for $10 billion, reasonable, claiming a documentary about January 6th damaged both his reputation and his business. Now, this is kind of typical for Trump, right? But he makes a large claim, attach a huge dollar sign to it, and hope the other side folds. This is the Trump playbook. And honestly, why wouldn't he? It's worked with so many organizations: Disney, CBS, Meta, Twitter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure he thought the BBC would fold in kind, but they didn't. And this is where things got a little complicated for Trump. Tara, what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so this is, I mean, it's hard even for me who watches these cases very closely to keep track of all of the cases of the president suing different media outlets and journalists and intimidating them and arresting them. And I mean, it's not funny at all. So I had to like refresh on what this case was, given the news today about the judge delaying this. So essentially what happened is that last month, the lawsuit entered discovery. And because in this particular case, and for the value he is seeking in damages, $10 billion, as you said, Xander,
Yeah.
Trump claimed that the documentary damaged his businesses. And the BBC, rightfully, the defendant asked for his financial records to be shared to determine whether the business losses that he is claiming in order to get $10 billion in damages were actually real. Completely legitimate. The court upheld that request, said, yes, we do need to review the financials to understand if these damages are merited. And that is where Trump freaked out and was like, wait a second, that will cause irreparable damage to me if I disclose my financials to the public through this discovery and through this case. And so he is trying to literally amend his own complaint right now to
Right.
take away the damages to his business so he does not have to disclose his financials. And that is apparently what happened, is that he got a Trump appointed judge, a judge that he appointed, to essentially intervene and say that they cannot go forward with this deadline until the courts have addressed whether or not his amendment will be approved, in which case then they hope his financial disclosures won't be necessary. So it's just like every other case we see like this. Trump is like, it's back to The Apprentice where he's saying, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired. Like, he's like, sue them, sue them, sue them. Like, I don't like that, sue them. How much for this? How much money I can get? And then suddenly the court of law is actually doing its job, and he's responsible for delivering this evidence of proof, and he throws up his hands and he's like, wait, walk it back, walk it back, walk it back. It's the same story we see across all of these lawsuits. And I mean, good on BBC for pushing this issue and not folding like some of our US legacy media counterparts unfortunately have done in settlements.
Doesn't this also show, Tara, that how empty these lawsuits are? Like how much he is betting on them folding. The fact that like it's not hard to skip ahead in that lawsuit and go, okay, if they do push back, I'm claiming I was damaged. They're going to ask for financial records to prove I was damaged. It's not like this was like some unforeseen move the BBC pulled. It just shows how much he's banking on premature capitulation to control this country and this economy.
No, that's exactly what he's banking on, and he won on that theory in a few instances,
Yes.
right? He's just hoping that they will just settle to not deal with it and to make it go away, like some media outlets have done. And when they don't do that, and they're actually willing to go through discovery, they freak out because they can't control the narrative, and they're not getting paid off for it. So I really do think that this is important. We know you guys talk about this all the time. When you actually show courage, when you actually
Yes.
stand up to Trump, it's not impossible to win, because usually the facts are on your side, because they're not operating in good faith on any of these fronts. And so once again, I think BBC doing this can make that standing up to this administration, forcing discovery in these ridiculous lawsuits and this litigation, actually matter and be more contagious, and have others do the same.
Yeah, and now I'm hoping the industry takes note that there's now data out there that says not only can you win, they're not even planning on you going to trial. And so now, to your point, he was winning a lot of these early on, but now that it's on the record and so clear that they're unprepared to go to trial. I hope everyone starts pushing back. So in his order, Altman called Trump's argument compelling, reasoning that if Trump is ultimately allowed to remove the business damages claims, the basis for forcing the Trump trust to hand over confidential financial records might disappear altogether. The BBC, of course, sees it very differently. They argue Trump's businesses are still central to the lawsuit because he's still asking for $10 billion in damages. $10 billion in damages to what? Trump isn't asking for less money. He's just asking for less discovery. Tara, what do you think? Do you think that the orange man is going to make his way out of this, or do you think this could shape up to be a major win for media in general?
I don't know how major a win it is. I think it is a win that will have implications, because clearly what he's doing won't hold up anymore, right? Since he didn't get the
Yeah.
settlement he was hoping for, and now he's trying to amend his own complaint to suggest he didn't have financial damages. There's no case anymore about what damages the BBC would owe him. So essentially, he's kind of pulling the case in a legal way of sorts, because there won't be a case that stands up, and I think they know that. So I think it will be case closed if he is able to amend his complaint, because it doesn't doesn't merit at all a judge and jury taking up this case when he's basically now retracting the fact that he thinks that it damaged his financials.
You've damaged my financials. I can't tell you in what way, but it's definitely worth $10 billion is in the way. It's wild. This is how I argued when I was 6 years old, man. It's nuts.
But also like what this case is all based on is them just editing two parts of his own speech. On January 6th together. Like there's no false information. It's two factual parts of his speech. So it's just, I mean, the entire thing is ludicrous, like most of his litigious activity. It's just about who can I get to pay me off? Because I'm, I think I'm king and I'm the president and everybody do as I say and give me money in between. And when that doesn't happen, it just kind of goes away and they, find another person to sue.
I'm going to try this in my fundraising. Have a nice coffee or something. Like, that coffee was great. You led me on to believe you were going to give me $30 million to help build this group. Let's see how that works in my life. I have a feeling it's going to have similar results. Okay, I got to move on to story number 2. Our long-range missile stockpile is being depleted. Trump is said to have blown up at Hegseth over this at Camp David last week. Meanwhile, excuse me. Sorry. Let's move back to Iran. Sorry, I was reading the wrong part of this script. Excuse me, gang. Trump is apparently on his 8th victory or his 8th stalemate, depending on which way the wind is blowing. Now, I know a lot of Americans, my family included, are focused on the effects of this war, like gas prices. But there's another supply this war is burning through, as I mentioned, that is making its way into headlines: America's missile stockpile. Let's go to CBS Chicago for the breakdown.
States has used nearly all of its stockpile of long-range precision missiles during this war with Iran. 2 sources with direct knowledge of that matter tell that to CBS News. Specifically, those sources said the U.S. has used virtually all of its Army tactical missile systems and its precision strike missiles.
Systems used by the U.S. Army, they launch from land and they strike targets precisely at some distance. Why is that valuable? Well, when you have a situation on the ground is that you're going to have a threat to aircraft, you're going to have a threat to pilots, other kinds of manned assets, these missiles are very useful because you can send them in without running that kind of risk. They're very expensive, they're very precise, they shoot at long range. We need a lot more of them.
Chief Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell said in a statement to CBS News, America's military is the most powerful in the world and has everything it needs to execute at the time and place of the president's choosing. We have executed multiple successful operations across combatant commands while ensuring the U.S. military possesses a deep arsenal of capabilities to protect our people and our interests.
Tara, what the fuck? What are your thoughts here?
I mean, this is actually a really terrifying story in many ways. I mean, there's a bunch of layers to it. One is obviously the Pete Hegseth layer, and like the fact that well, I guess we will get into actually what happened here with him and Trump basically confronting him and being angry about not being aware of the stockpile crisis or thinking that it was resolved. This is really, really alarming on a number of fronts because this is a war that nobody wanted. This is a war that Congress did not approve. And this is a war that is literally depleting an already depleted resource that keeps the American people safe and should only be used, right, in times of national security and intervention that have gone through the appropriate channels. Nobody wants this war. This administration has gaslit us on this war. And now this war is literally, as this reporting shows, making us less safe and less prepared to defend ourselves or to be able to be good allies abroad. And so this is a really serious issue. And it's one that honestly, I don't think anybody should be surprised of when you put someone like Pete Hegseth, who was a Fox News weekend host, that is his resume, in charge of our Department of Defense. Like that to me was always the scariest part of this situation, was putting this person in charge, who this is the person the president is looking to be able to advise him on strategies regarding interventions and war and national security. And now look at where we are. We are in a much more vulnerable position national security wise.
Yeah, and just to get a little more specific, these specific missiles, these aren't just run-of-the-mill missiles. These are the ones that our military uses when you don't want to send pilots into harm's way and are pretty integral to avoiding unnecessary casualties. They're expensive, they're highly precise, and according to experts, they take years to replace. You can't just whip them up no matter how much Hegseth inflates the budget. And that's becoming a real strategic problem. According to the Washington Post, the shortages are already limiting America's military options in Iran, affecting Ukraine's air defenses, and even changing how commanders decide whether to intercept incoming threats. But the damage of this depletion goes beyond the battlefield because, according to reporting today, these shortages have also sparked a major blowup inside Trump's own administration. Tara, have you heard that the girlies are fighting?
Yeah, I was getting ahead of myself there. That was kind of the headline of the story that I had read earlier, but
Me and you both.
essentially, according to the Washington Post, two sources reported that Trump was furious when he learned how bad the shortages had become and confronted Hegseth during a cabinet meeting at Camp David last week, saying he thought the munition issue had been fixed. Hegseth, of course, was quick to find a scapegoat, his deputy, Stephen Feinberg. He blamed him, threw him under the bus. White House came full out saying, denying the reports of this, et cetera. But yeah, I mean, I think it's, again, not surprising that Hegseth does not know what he's doing. I think it's more surprising that Trump is surprised and angry. But I think what he's angry about is that he wants to approve more missile strikes on Iran. And now he is in this position where he cannot. And I am deeply concerned about how they spin this related to the defense budget, which is caught up in the Senate because there's not bipartisan agreement on this, because nobody wants to fund a war that nobody wanted in this country except for the president and his son-in-law.
Yeah, nobody wanted. No one still is clear on what even the goal of this thing is. As you said, the White House has denied all of this, but naturally Trump's behavior is his own tell. According to him, the U.S. was prepared to attack Iran on Monday, but something changed his mind. You would think it would be the missile depletion, right, Tara? But no, it was something much, much bigger, the goodness of his heart. Let's take a look.
Iran, as an example, will never have a nuclear weapon. They already can't, but it's going to be formal. The strait's going to be open very soon, or they're going to get hit very hard, and then the strait's going to be open. And we were going to a tremendous attack, the biggest since World War II. And they called me and said, very politely, please, can we talk? Can we talk? They didn't want. And I said, yes, we can talk. Let's get it done. Finally, let's get it done. This should have been done by other presidents for 50 years. You know, you keep hearing 47, but that's been for 3 years now. It's
Are you buying it?
That clip, you could have showed me that clip 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, 3 weeks ago. Like, it's like Groundhog Day with Trump. He says the same thing every time. I strongmanned them. I told them, if you don't open the strait, which by the way was open before we launched this war that nobody wanted, then I'm going to blow you up. And like this is, I think, maybe the 8th time he said that they have reached an agreement, and it's all BS and it's all gaslighting. We are less safe than we were before it started. The strait was open. The strait, that's our only leverage now, is to get the strait open. That was open before the war. It makes no sense. And now our missile defenses are depleted, and gas prices are through the roof in this country. So it's a massive failure and embarrassment across the board.
So regime change is no longer a piece of this, I guess. That's no longer a piece of it. Democracy in Iran, no longer a piece of it. I don't know, getting forced into it by Israel, I don't hear too much. Marco Rubio brought that up once. So other than that shifting story of the why, it is a little bit of Groundhog's Day for sure. And Groundhog's Day continued today. Last night, True Social, he insisted the U.S. has massive amounts of munition and that more are being manufactured every day. Then he added this. The leakers of these treasonous statements are being hunted down. But here's what's odd to me, Tara. This information on missile depletion, this isn't something some random staffer would get a hold of and leak to the press. The people who know these numbers are sitting at the highest levels of Trump's national security team. Rubio, Vance, Hegseth, National Security Council, etc. So As we know, some of them take place by accident on Signal. Some of these leaks. Who do you think's to blame?
I mean, it's definitely two of the people you just named, Xander, because
Right.
they were in the room. So him saying
Between
that,
those
like,
guys, it's like the Spider-Man meme where they're just like pointing except Rubio and Vance. It's like, who fucked up
that's
today?
exactly what it is. It's just his way of deflecting and moving on because he can't keep them quiet. They're all talking to each other. I mean, it was probably Hegseth, like saying
Yeah.
it in like in a joking way to a reporter, like basically being like off record, like, oh man, I really fucked this up. Like, excuse my language. I feel like that's plausible in this
Yeah.
scenario.
This is what happens when your whole cabinet is made of podcasters and like authors. You're not going to be good at not having leaks if everyone their entire career has basically been in the business of broadcasting every thought they have and everything they try to do. They're essentially all promotion artists. And so they're going to do what they're really best equipped to do. The thing that's like infuriating about this to me, on top of obviously the BS coming out of the Trump administration, is I've been told my whole life we have to spend $1 trillion on our defense department every year to have the strongest military in the world. And we get in like certainly not a World War level of skirmish and we're out of our most important shit. I was told I can't have healthcare. We can't have healthcare. We can't have better schools. We can't have all these things because we've got to keep stacking up this military and all of its equipment. How are we just, it's infuriating to think that after 3 months of this random skirmish that no one wanted, that we're out of some of our most important assets.
Yeah, and I think the more people learn about this, I think it's also going to compound the other thing that Americans are really angry about in general. That is like having a massive impact on primaries and elections, and has become a litmus test for Democrats running for office, which is how can we continue to send arms to other countries, including Israel, especially Israel, which is one of the hot topics among voters, and not be taking care of our own. So now that is compounded by the fact that we don't even have missile defense right now, stockpiles to protect us as we're antagonizing really, really nefarious adversaries abroad. And so again, the conversation starts with how can we not provide health care and basic support and services to the American people while the president's enriching himself, sending arms abroad, and now suddenly we do not have the defense munitions we need to protect ourselves when we have a madman in the White House that is antagonizing our enemies. It's the entire thing. It's just it's boiling over, and it's very scary, and that's why so many people, especially probably now in August, are turning away from the news.
But don't turn away here because we tell you what to do at the end of it. Unlike the other places where you just are traumatized and have to leave the room and take a few deep breaths. All right, Tara. Well, before we bring on our guest, I want to play a pretty extraordinary conversation involving Trump's pick for Attorney General Todd Blanche. Last week, Blanche joined a private call hosted by the White House Faith Office and the anti-abortion group Intercessors for America. And he wasn't vague about what this administration is working toward. I want to play you a clip of the leaked audio.
Part of my job as the acting Attorney General, and Attorney General Bondi before me, was bringing back regularity to the Department of Justice and the government when it comes to protecting religious liberty. We're working, hand in hand with HHS and the FDA and the White House and President Trump's team to get permanent solutions so that the Dobbs decision becomes permanent in every single state. If states have said we are going to protect the unborn and we're going to protect every life from the moment of conception, we're putting practices and policies in place so that other states and other organizations can't attack that, and they can't do things like they're doing with mailing in mail order drugs and things like that. And it's a process that takes a lot of time. And that's why it's been 19 months and we don't have complete victory yet, but we will have victory, and victory will be soon, and it will be permanent. And that's an important thing to everybody to remember.
If you're wondering if we were dealing with fascism yet, having federal officials say we haven't achieved complete victory yet in our powers over states to dictate their laws, that's maybe the quote you were waiting for. I don't know why you were waiting at this point, if wondering if we're dealing with a fascist effort. But Tara, what were your thoughts?
I have so many thoughts and feelings. I hate that man.
Let it out. This is a good place to let it out. Defiance, you
I
can let it go.
I mean, and this is, look, we always knew, anyone paying attention, right, when Dobbs came
Yeah.
down, when they repealed Roe versus Wade in this country and took away our constitutional, see, if you guys can hear this, this is my dog's toy. I'm so sorry. I gave him a horrific loud
It's all right.
hog. And
Right before we lost Miles for the week, he found like a soundboard. And so we've been dealing with odd sounds for the last 2 weeks. See if you can steal it from him.
so sorry. I got his attention. So here, have a cracker.
It's all right.
No,
Laura
but we need
Tompkins in the
this-
chat says we love dogs. We have a very pro dog community here at Defiance.
He's a good one. He just wants attention, like all of us. So he basically, we all knew that this would happen. We knew that they would not stop at Dobbs, and that it wasn't just what they said it was, which is let's give states the rights to decide. Of course, they absolutely want to have a federal ban on abortion in this country. They want to take birth control away. This is all, none of this is hyperbolic. It's in Project 2025. It's something that they talk about quite frequently, but this is the first time we have had a senior administration official say the quiet part out loud about their desire for a permanent solution, and that would be total victory. I'm not a lawyer or a legal analyst, but that's not actually possible unless they have state house power in all of these states. With the exception of potentially another Supreme Court ruling. And so we know we live in fear as that as well, as they have rigged this court. But of course, that's always been their plan and their agenda. And it's important for us to now have the audio of them laying it out so explicitly so people can absolutely have no doubt about the fact that that is their agenda, to have a federal ban on abortion in this country.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, as I hear that, I've been hearing, I think this is like embedded in the trans conversation that keeps coming up on the right. Passing Dobbs was in some ways the worst thing to happen to the Republican Party, because it kind of broke that Nixon Southern strategy of aligning, the religious conservatives of the South with like the kind of neoliberal free market Republicans, and now this populist branch. They kind of delivered on something that was more useful to them undelivered upon in terms of keeping that coalition together. And it seems to me like they know that they've lost like the strength of that coalition in some ways. Do you agree with that? I'm just putting my strategist hat on here for a second.
No, I very much agree with it, Xander, because they overreached so dramatically, and the backlash was so fierce that's why we haven't really heard anything about abortion or reproductive rights from this administration. They've picked a million other horrific battles on our rights and freedoms, but it's been quite quiet on that because it was deeply, deeply unpopular. Right? We saw states, red states like Kansas and Kentucky and Ohio. Have referendums, so they don't want to talk about abortion. They did not want this audio leaked either, because it's a deeply mobilizing issue for Americans on both sides of the aisle. It impacts every single person in this country if there is a federal ban on abortion, and the American people do not want that. They know how unpopular it is, but they have to keep appeasing that base. So I think it's a really smart and very accurate take, Xander, that they overreached on this, and this is not an issue they want to be talking about, I imagine.
Yeah, I think you touched on this, but the bigger question really is, what does the Trump administration believe it can still get from this Supreme Court? Dobbs was a devastating decision, but it did send abortion policy back to the states, which like in a former Republican Party would have been very happy with the states' rights argument. These guys, not so much. You have Blanche, as you said, saying the quiet part out loud, which is a reflection of something bigger. And that's exactly why we wanted to bring in our next guest. Joining us now is Lisa Graves. Lisa is the co-founder of Court Accountability and the True North Research, leading expert on right-wing legal movement, and the author of Without Precedent. She also helped expose Justice Clarence Thomas billionaire funded gifts. Thank you for that. I almost said grift, but I guess it's one and the same thing. Lisa, it's great to have you.
Xander, thank you so much. And it's really an honor to be on this program on Defiance, and a joy to be here with Tara. I also write the Grave Injustice column on Substack with Courier. So it's just a joy.
Oh, nice.
To be here
It's a
with
family
you.
reunion.
Yay.
All right, well,
so here we are. Yeah.
I know. Hi, Lisa. So happy to have you here, and to for the stars to align to us both to be here. So we work really closely together, and Lisa's the smartest person I know on the courts.
Oh, that's saying a lie, because Tara's the smartest person I know. All right. So when you hear Todd Blanche say the administration wants to make Dobbs permanent in every single state. What do you hear, Lisa?
Wrote about this for Ms. Magazine a couple of weeks ago in terms of what the right-wing plan was on abortion coming into this nomination for Blanche, how they were trying to get assurances that he would block the mailing of mifepristone, the abortion pill. And of course, we've been vindicated in essence by the leak of this audio from the White House. It's astounding to me for them to claim that they are protecting religious liberty when what they're doing is denying women across the country the freedom of conscience to choose for themselves whether they can access abortion or not, what it matters for their health and their lives. But what I read between the lines from this audio is Todd Blanche basically winking and nodding, promising that after the midterms, they will resolve this, quote, permanently, to try to block women from having access to mail order pills. Now, of course, you notice that they have no interest in regulating Hims or Hers or any of these other online pharmacies or little blue pills or pills of any kind, just access to abortion. Because as Todd Blanche said in that call, their objective is to make Dobbs, the destruction of Roe versus Wade, the destruction of access to abortion for American women across the country, permanent everywhere. And that should alarm anyone who cares not just about reproductive rights, but cares about this authoritarian regime that Todd Blanche is helping to helm for Donald Trump to restrict and limit our rights in ways that are really inappropriate, really, in defiance, not to borrow your word, but in defiance of common sense, of the Constitution and our traditions of allowing states to be able to protect the rights of their citizens.
Sorry, we're dealing with mute issues over here.
Oh,
Tara, you can unmute. It's safe.
I keep hearing an echo. Sorry, everybody. I can't say it better, Lisa, than you did just now, and sort of what they're looking for. And this does have a great deal to do with the MILFI, as we call it, but the abortion pill, because honestly, abortion rates have not gone down since Dobbs because of the accessibility, which is a good thing. That is the right we want to protect and preserve. And so far, the courts have done that, but we know that that is not the agenda and that we can't really trust the courts on this.
Yeah, I will just add that, as you pointed out, Tara, the Trump and company have been ducking this issue publicly. They have been trying to not have it come into play in these midterms because they lost so badly in 2022. There was such a resounding rebuke, as you point out, from red states and blue states in proposition battles and the like. Just this past week, there was a rebuke of Kansas, where Chris Kobach and the far right in the state were trying to change the way that judges are appointed to the Supreme Court of Kansas, again, specifically on abortion, to try to limit access to abortion by the women of Kansas. And so this is an issue where they are trying to hide behind what's happening behind the scenes. And as you pointed out so well, Tara, this is straight out of the playbook of Project 2025. This is the playbook of the Heritage Foundation, which other groups have documented. A majority of the groups that were part of this Project 2025 agenda were funded by Leonard Leo. Who's Leonard Leo? He's the guy who helped pack the U.S. Supreme Court, doing the bidding of billionaires to capture the court and get this anti-choice majority installed on the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn Roe versus Wade, but also to aid the billionaires in all sorts of other ways, and in fact, also to assail our voting rights. So Leonard Leo, is a major player in all this, and we know that he's also been active in these state court battles in Ohio, spending enormous sums to try to block the women of Ohio from protecting their reproductive rights. So even though it's not on the headlines, it is on the ballot this year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Leonard Leo, not a name you want to hear come up. It's kind of like hearing Scar from The Lion King is behind something in this movement. It's funny. This mirrors so much of what the right's criticism of the left's use of judges has been for so long, where they said we moved basically conversations that should have been legislative in nature and made the moral arguments that brought in the judicial branch. It feels like they're doing much of the same. Trump and his allies see SCOTUS as an extension of them. In what other ways do you see them wielding SCOTUS or thinking they can wield SCOTUS to their advantage?
Well, we certainly.
And by the way,
Lisa,
Lisa, sorry for 1 second. We're getting an echo, so our producer is unmuting and muting everyone so we don't get an echo. So if you're ever on mute, that's why we're muting and unmuting behind the scenes. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, producer, for keeping the echoes down. Yes, the abortion issue is in some ways the tip of the iceberg, although it's so revealing of how these justices are willing to substitute their personal judgment, their own religious beliefs, their own opposition for abortion to what the law is. Each of these justices, in one form or another, promised to follow the legal precedent when they were up for their nomination hearing. The Roe versus Wade decision was affirmed over and over and over again, including by, oh, that's me. Sorry about that. Nothing like a poorly timed ring through by a telemarketer. Anyway, this is something where, in essence, this court, the people on this court promised the American people that they were not going to impose their personal views. And in fact, at the first instance, they had Amy Coney Barrett on board, they moved forward to destroy Roe versus Wade. They did that, but that's not all. We've seen them accelerate since these 3 Republican appointees of Donald Trump, handpicked by Leonard Leo, were put on the court. We've seen them destroy the ability of the EPA to regulate carbon through the Clean Power Plan and more. We've seen them to destroy, just most recently, access to the courthouse for people who were suing Monsanto for the poisoning of their water. We've seen them move forward to destroy the Voting Rights Act, a pet issue for John Roberts, who has long sought to weaken the Voting Rights Act by allowing these southern states to bleach out Black representation, to basically resegregate the southern congressional delegations. Over and over, we've seen a court that is acting out of control, that acts like it's an arm of a political party, the Republican Party. And John Roberts himself orchestrated the unprecedented invention of immunity from criminal prosecution for Donald Trump, which basically pardoned him for his past crimes under the notion that these were, quote, official acts, and also paved his way for his return to power in this second term, and then bookended that with nearly 24 rulings overturning lower court orders based on the law, based on the Constitution, statutes, regulations, case law, saying that Donald Trump had transgressed those legal rules in an array of issues, on immigration, on firing people, on health issues, and more. And so what we see is a Supreme Court that is acting with impunity, that basically made itself the kingmaker for Donald Trump. And in most cases, with just 2 exceptions, trade and birthright citizenship, it has hit the gas pedal to help Trump continue his destructive spree against the interests of the American people.
Tara, I want to throw the next question to you, but before I do, is there anything we can do about people lying at confirmation hearings? Like, it's just become the new norm. What is the point of them if they can lie and there's no accountability afterwards? If it turns out they were like flagrantly lying to everyone, it just feels like either the tool and how we approve people needs to change, or there needs to be some consequences embedded in lying at these confirmation hearings.
No, I mean, it's a huge problem. We're seeing this with all. We've had so many folks lie under oath, and they just, the bar gets lower and lower. And until there is an actual rule of law Supreme Court, until there is people in positions of power in the majority who can actually force the issue on accountability here, it's a kangaroo court essentially. And something I wanted to bring up, just because I feel so lucky that our timing was such that, Lisa, you and I are here together, because I've been dying to ask you this question anyway, is there was a story folks might remember from a number of weeks ago that came out speculating Alito's retirement from the court. And then it was pulled back, and the reporter said that it was a total mistake. She misunderstood. I don't buy that at all. I believe that it was just premature, but that it is in the cards, because they're not just planning on the short term in terms of what this court can accomplish for this very, very long-term ideological kind of vamping of our court system and of our society through these rules. They're also thinking very long-term about shoring up this court for the long term, because Alito votes the way that they want. He rules the way they want, and yet he is on the older side of things, and they are very fearful, but Lisa, I want you to challenge me on my assumptions here, here, but very fearful of being able to have an open seat should anything happen to him, given his age, et cetera, when they no longer have the White House or the Senate to be able to get those confirmation hearings. I also sort of suspect that this has something to do with the wild story of the missing Mitch McConnell in Kentucky, because as long as they don't have his vote, they need to replace it with a vote that would pass a new Supreme Court justice through the Senate, and need that during the lame duck, essentially after the midterms this year. Am I right to assume that this is kind of part of a strategy that's happening behind the scenes to make sure they keep the ideological majority on the court, Lisa?
Well, I think that it's fair to say that this right-wing billionaire network that has funded Leonard Leo and in fact enriched Leonard Leo, after he put these 3 justices on the Supreme Court, he handpicked them for Donald Trump. Suddenly, he was given control of a $1.6 billion trust by Barry Side, a person who spent a lot of his time trying to block access to abortion, as well as a longtime buddy through the Cato Institute of Charles Koch and this anti-regulatory agenda that's also part of this scheme. They very much have a long-term view of control. And you can see that echo in the statements of Todd Blanche, trying to make things permanent. I don't know about you, but most of the times I think politicians are just trying to make things better, or at least some of them, certainly Democrats, trying to get a policy in place for now. Whether it's permanent or not is actually a much harder thing. It's very arrogant to claim that you're going to make anything permanent in such a closely divided nation. What do you have up your sleeve if you think you can make things permanent? But this idea of a permanent Republican majority, that was the wish list, the dream of Karl Rove. We heard about it about 20 years ago. They've moved the levers to try to make that the case. And they've used the Supreme Court to do that in part through what the court just did, which was intervene in this 2026 election to change the rules for the maps in order to give Republicans an additional numerical advantage coming into this midterm election. So the long-term strategy is definitely there. I do think that we remain at risk for a vacancy, even though Alito said, no, not happening. There's no guarantee on that. That means nothing. It's just words. They could try to squeeze someone through during the lame duck, just like they squeezed Amy Coney Barrett through as Americans were voting Donald Trump out of office. We're not out of the woods at all. And given Donald Trump's track record, it could very well be that he wants to put one of his criminal defense attorneys on the Supreme Court because that's who he trusts the most. But I want to go back to something you said, Xander, because this issue of judicial nominees lying when they're before the Senate, before the American people, I actually called for the fact that Brett Kavanaugh should have been impeached, not confirmed, because he lied under oath in 3 separate nomination hearings about files that were stolen from my office, taken from my office without my permission by a Republican operative, and given to Brett Kavanaugh, which suddenly appeared in Brett Kavanaugh's files when some of those files were disclosed in his Supreme Court nomination. He lied under oath 3 times. He should have been impeached, and I think he actually should have been charged with perjury. He's not the only one. I think that the perjury issue is a real issue and should be a real issue for these judges. And now you have this totally other perverse thing happening, which is that the nominees of Donald Trump to the judiciary right now refuse to even admit that Joe Biden won the 2020 election. They will merely say that he was certified. Maybe they're afraid of Trump, but this dodge is more evidence of how this nomination process is broken. The process for reviewing these people are broken. Some of them are young. Some of them have terrible records. Some of them have no indication that they would be fair. In fact, they were chosen not to be fair. They were chosen in order to put their thumb on the scale of justice to reverse our rights. And as Leonard Leo proudly touted in a closed door meeting in 2019, that we stood at the precipice of this revival of what he called the structural constitution that no one in that room, including people in their 80s, were alive to see, basically to draw us back to before the New Deal, to the robber baron era, to that Lochner era, so that the most powerful people can prevail, people that Leo and his fellows have been rubbing elbows with as part of this extreme agenda. I guess the last thing I'll say on that is this is a situation in which this court is not responsive to the American people. John Roberts himself said, if the people don't like it, it's just too bad. I've got news for John Roberts. We don't like it, and it's not just too bad. There is a growing movement to rebuke this court and restore our rights, and I implore everyone to join us in that.
It's so confusing to me that this free market capitalist partnership with Trump has continued on in the face of, tariffing the world and taking shares in companies and, intimidating private companies to take people off the air. It's interesting that that alliance seems to be still alive and well despite all of that. This might be a little bit out of your wheelhouse, Lisa, but Tara, Lisa, I'd love to get your thoughts on like how I think one of my assumptions was that alliance would crumble in the face of him acting like such a hard to predict dictator, which is not good for business broadly. And now he's really kind of taken on more authoritarian attempts at controlling the economy, wanting to control the Fed, et cetera. I just wonder, what do you think is keeping that alliance alive and well? Tara and Lisa, I just love your thoughts.
Do you want to go first, Tara?
Sure, I'll jump in. We're navigating these mute buttons, everybody. No, I think it's a smart insight, Xander. I think my instinct, my gut reaction to that is that they see him as a temporary useful idiot. And they see all of the decisions that they're doing, the way that they are from the court, the young justices they've put forward, the institutional changes and dismantling of the courts as we know it as far more permanent, right? That's the word that's come up throughout this whole conversation many times, starting with Todd Blanche saying that they promise a permanent solution to Dobbs in this country. But so I that is my take, is that they're looking far beyond Trump. Trump is mortal as far as we know. He will die at some point. He will not be president at some point, hopefully sooner rather than later. The not being president part, I don't wish death on people typically. But I think that they're looking far beyond his tenure here in leadership and looking beyond the things that they disagree with, because they see those as temporary for his own self-enrichment, while he does a massive service to them that they can keep going long beyond him.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and the related piece is, Donald Trump is this useful idiot for John Roberts. Trump took up the desire of the Project 2025 right-wing funded operation to attack the independent agencies so that he could destroy the Federal Trade Commission, so that he could destroy the independence of the FTC as well as the FCC and everything else, and basically put everyone under his leash. And that was fully consistent with John Roberts' desire to destroy those independent agencies, because John Roberts, has sought to aggrandize presidential power since he was a lawyer for Ronald Reagan. He's a Reagan revolutionary. So this was very convenient for them. And some in the private sector like that. They like having a president who's so easy to curry favor with or get favor with by donations to his pet projects or whatever, that then they can get, their cases dismissed. They can get their mergers approved. So for some in the industry, it's very beneficial. The other part is, Wall Street is a lot of things, but it's not a moral compass. It's doing quite well under Trump, but the rest of us are not doing so well. People who have, investments are doing quite well, including some of these big billionaires, these hedge funders and more. But the fact is that most people are really facing real challenges, paying their medical bills, paying for groceries, paying escalating costs for housing, paying for, healthcare for kids, for, school. All those things have gone up. Donald Trump tries to claim that that's just a myth. It's not a myth. It's reality for people. And you even had Scott Bessent, his, toady of an Treasury Department leader, saying there's no furthering gap between the rich and poor. They're not seeing it. They refuse to look at it. It's real for everyone else. And the rich know they're getting richer. And we know the rich are getting richer. The billionaires are getting more and more money because of Donald Trump's big ugly bill, his what I call the big billionaire bailout bill, to basically shift our tax money to billionaires who don't need the money, from providing for the basic things we've been paying for all along, like making sure our Social Security benefits are secure, making sure there's Medicare and Medicaid, making sure we have schools that are well funded. Donald Trump says there's basically no money for that, and his Republican stooges on the Hill are willing to go along with that. But, we know the reality, and you all were talking about, like, we've spent how many trillions of dollars on defense over these many years, and we can run out of our really super important long range missiles in the span of 3 months, where did the money go? And yet there is, there is the Secretary of Defense. I'm not going to call it the War Department, despite the way they've misused it. But you have, him coming and saying, we need even more money for defense, but no money for you, no money for the rest of the American people. We can see what's happening. We see Donald Trump gilding the White House, gilding horses that are, statues next to Arlington Cemetery. We see the debacle of all the cash that he is wasting, money coming out of our pockets. And I think the American people are really, in general, upset. His polling has fallen, dramatically over these past several months. And people want real change. They want real accountability, and they want this madness to stop. Some people don't. That's just, they're along for this ride, I guess, for Donald Trump. But I think most people, independents, Democrats, and an increasing number of Republicans, get that this train is off the tracks with Donald Trump.
Well, Lisa, you're on Defiance. So we not only talk about what's going on with you, but we ask what to do. And you've been a leader on that front too. How do we get out of this? What actions are you leading, and how can we get involved?
Yes, well, there is an ongoing effort to push forward reform of the Supreme Court and accountability. You can go to our website, courtaccountability.org, find out more about some of those reforms that are underway. We'll be launching more details on some of these reforms later this year, so definitely check back. We also have my Substack, which is the Substack with Courier, I'm thrilled to have, with Graven Justice, where you can find out what's happening and often links to information that can be helpful to go forward. And I think really the key thing I would say in the months ahead is do not give up. Do not give in. Make sure you're registered. Double check, triple check. Make sure that you can get out to vote. Make sure you defend the right to vote if there's any effort to intimidate it or to not count those ballots. We have an opportunity here. It's a crucial opportunity to put some guardrails on what's happening. We've seen that the Trump loyalists are not going to do a thing to protect us. They're just going to turn a blind eye and even cheer what's going on. And so it's up to us. And, on that note, I was telling some folks that it's like a choir. I can't really carry a tune, but a choir carries that note so people can breathe in between the note. And so we have to breathe. We have to recharge. We have to sometimes let someone else step forward and make that stand. But at the end of the day, it's up to all of us to take a stand against this for ourselves and for our future. And I am deeply hopeful that the common sense is rising in the American people, that people get it. They don't want this, and we're going to come together to rebuke this court, rebuke this president, and insist on real accountability, real reform, and real progress.
Well, we're all deeply grateful you're out there doing this work, and you're already teamed up with Tara over here, which is a great start. Thank you for everything you're doing, and we look forward to having you back on the program to follow more of what you're outlining for us. It's an important fight, and we're so happy you're there fighting.
Thank you, Xander. Thank you so much, and thank you, Tara. It was a joy to be on with both of you and to be on Defiance, and to be undefiant. Wait, to be defiant, undaunted.
Yeah. We try not to be undefiant. Only halfway through the show we hit a lull and we're a little less defiant, but we bring it back up.
By the way, I have to say, the defiance.org, man, what a URL. This is fantastic.
I was about to give you some props for your URL. I thought it was pretty good as well. Right on. All right, gang. All right, Lisa, we'll see you soon. All right, Tara, we're making it down the home stretch. As you know, at the end of all of our episodes, we welcome a new member of the Defiance in our section. Who's joined the Defiance? People out in the world that are using their voice during the movement to fight against Trump's hate and corruption he has brought into our country. We try to highlight them. And we have the pleasure of welcoming these people every week. And we usually have some beautiful stories. But today, we have something a little more obvious. For years, there's been a secret warrior lurking in the background of this fight, and that we have yet to properly welcome in. Something that MAGA internet trolls have never been able to beat, no matter how hard they try. And that, my friends, is grammar. So grab your pens and pencils, and let's look at the lovely creator, Caitlin Speaks, to explain it in a way the internet incels can grasp.
Welcome to MAGA English, class where I teach America's proudly uneducated the only language they barely know, their own. First up, we have Ed. Ed writes, wow, this lady is smart and beautiful. Thanks, Ed. When a law enforcement officer give a order, you do what they say. I learned this in kindergarten. Oh, Ed, in kindergarten you say? Well, you don't have to tell the class that that's also where your education ended. But no fear, that's why I'm here. Now, Ed, in the English language, we have something called articles. A, N, and the. When a word starts with a vowel sound, we use an. So it's an order, not a order. Got it? Good. Next up, we have Bob. Now, everyone, be nice to Bob. Not everyone has the luxury of a large gene pool. Now, Bob says, they're not citizens. They do not get civil rights. They get human rights, and they are invaders. I thank you for putting your face on this, because when the shit goes down, you're going out. Goodbye, bitch. You're a fucking traitor. Bobby, I have to catch my breath after that run-on sentence without commas or periods or any other form of punctuation. But let's just focus on the last word, traitor. The word you're looking for is traitor. A traitor is someone who trades. For example, someone who trades their soul for a felon.
Oh, man. Oh, man, that was pretty nice. All right, so for being the roadblock that these keyboard trumpers just can't seem to get a grasp on, we would like to welcome Grammar and Caitlin Speaks to the Defiance. Welcome, welcome. What do you think, Tara? Did that make your journalist heart happy, fighting back with Grammar?
I mean, I really was just shocked by the Bob comments and her reading it. It was excellent. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I think it's very clever, and it's so true. The keyboard warriors, man, you can see the anger. I mean, it's no different than our president, right? I'm surprised she didn't tackle that in that.
There is a part of me that gets like kind of serious. Like, honestly, the failures of our education system to produce people who can have strong deductive reasoning, understand our civic, like, so there's like, as much as, you know, that's funny. I don't mean to, like, it's always a funny part of the program, but there is part of me that's like, we have failed people for so long across so many generations. And like, you know, it sucks that Bob is as harmful as he is now, but it also sucks that like a person can go through our entire system and behave like that and think those things and write in those ways. There's a rot, an underlying rot that has allowed for people to be captured by someone who so obviously lies, who so obviously tries to wield a system in ways it wasn't supposed to be wielded, but people don't catch on because they don't understand how our government was designed and the intentions behind it. So there's larger rot. All that stuff is indicative. All right. This is actually, Tara, I don't know if you know this. We launched a Defiant achievement. So our audience is now called the Defiants, and we have promotions on the anthill for welcoming folks to basically it's a referral program to bring folks into the Defiance. And as people reach certain thresholds, we welcome them with their promotions. Do we have the graphic today? All right. Achieving the rank of Scout, Tara. That means they've brought one new Defiant member into the anthill. That's Thomas P. That's Gene L. That's Pearl T. Maureen, Ed T. Sandy, Tom R. Why are all their names short and Tara? It's because we just are not trying to out all of the Defiance members. That would be a poor execution of being a Defiance, but we still want to give them shout outs. Thank you everyone for being involved. If you want to, rank up, what do they call it? Get promoted. Go to defiance.news/leaderboard. Your referral code is there. Share it with, your Indivisible crew, your family, your friends, whatever the top text message thread is, and help us grow this movement. All right. Thank you, Tara. Thank you for joining. This was awesome. Thank you for sidecarring with us for this entire episode. I always say I want to be Tara when I grow up. There's so many, especially when I met you. Honestly, I was kind of early on in my pro-democracy career, and you were kicking ass at, I don't know, you're like doing a mix of very public things and very dark arts things. So I never know which one I can talk about, but I'm so freaking impressed with the kind of the way you take on democracy as a chessboard and building different tools for different parts of that fight. I'm mixing metaphors, but I hope you understand. And you continue to do so, oftentimes taking on the most difficult fights, not ones that have wins at their back, but ones that we need nonetheless. And I just want to thank you, Eva, for being here, but also for just being you in all the ways you've been you in this fight.
Oh, Xander, right back at you. It's incredibly kind of you and generous, and you guys always have been. And I feel the same about you. You and Miles are so creative and so bold and brave to just dive in and bring people along in the community that you've built here. And I love that the Defiance, who doesn't want to be a Defiant, to grow
Right?
this movement together. It's brilliant. It's creative. We need more of that because we also need the joy laden into this work because it's really, really, really difficult
Yes.
as we go through this. And so I love the community you've built here. I'm so honored to get to be a part of it and to join you as co-host once in a while. So thank you for having me, Xander.
Now, you're quickly becoming a famous person, but for those who don't know where to find you, where can people find you?
Well, I will promote Courier above myself, but couriernewsroom.com, courierlocal.com to find any of our local newsrooms. If they're in your states, we are now in 20 states across the country. So sign up for our free newsletters if we're in your state, or sign up at couriernewsroom.com for our national newsletter. My platform as a millennial female is definitely Instagram at Tara McGowan RI, because I live in Rhode Island. But you can follow Courier on all of the socials and the Substacks, including Lisa Graves' wonderful Substack with us, Grave Injustice. So thank you. Thanks for letting us get more people into the Courier community as well, Xander.
Yeah. Please, please, please go sign up. We Courier, if you don't know, or if you weren't part of the Defiance beforehand, we provide a small grant to Courier as one of our first grantees. I think it was like way back in January or February, for the work they are doing to build a healthy media ecosystem, and in particular, taking on the fight to build healthy local journalism, which has been lost over the last several decades. So if you haven't followed them already, make sure to follow these guys. Until then, gang, we got Friday coming up. Friday's a fun day. We give out our Bootlicker Award, aka the Soulmate Award. We go over MAGA losses, although like every day is a MAGA loss day recently, which has been really nice. But we go over the MAGA loss highlights of the week. And then also we have our weekly coffee right before that. So that's 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern for the weekly coffee. And then right here, same time, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific for Defiance Daily. Until then, stay loud, stay brave, and stay together. We'll see you soon.